Good morning, everybody. Um, I know we started a little later than normal this morning. Um, Today's topic is some self help for pain. And when I woke this morning, I'm going to try not to cry. The ripple effects that people are feeling in this world is overwhelming. The pain, the sadness, the anger, it's a lot. So, before we start, I just want to say a few things. It's not okay the way we treat each other in any form, physically, emotionally, or mentally, which is why today worked out to be a good day to talk about pain in detail, since we talked about an overview last week, and then this today we're going to talk about how to help those pain aspects. For me, crying is one of those releases. For me, as a spiritual medium, as a shaman, whatever label I want to use, that energy and that ripple of pain magnifies what I'm feeling inside. So it's just not the sadness and the pain that I feel for what I'm seeing going on in our world, but every other person's sadness, every other person's anger. And it's just a huge tidal wave. So, with all that said, I'm just going to play a little clip of the singing from the protest with Martin Luther King and give a moment of silence to what is happening in our current society as well as the world over hate, over intolerance, over anger, and over pain. Okay. So, one of the ways that I deal with pain, and we're going to talk about self help for emotional, as we see, and we're going to do that one first, mental and physical. And as I discussed last week, they all intertwine and they all work against each other and with each other, I should say. So, when I get extremely emotional, for me, with the spirits around me, I first kind of push them away. So those with spiritual abilities, you would need to do that first. So push them away. And then I let the tears out for however long I need to, but there are times when we can't just cry our eyes out, and we have to take a moment and take a pause and stop crying. So the first thing I do is I take a few deep breaths just to kind of relax myself and try and see if that stops the tears, because breathing creates this wonderful thing within our body system, because we need oxygen, right? We need it everywhere. And when I breathe now, I've learned to do the belly breaths, to really do that baby breathing, get your stomach really full and really open, and get that oxygen in and pull it in and then hold it, because that engages so many different things within our system. It engages not only our solar plex, which is our emotional brain, but just it forces us to be here, be now. And that one is the technique that not only do I use for emotional pain, but also mental pain. And I'll give a quick little mental pain example. So I'm going to take a few deep breaths right now so I can get myself into, being able to do this video without crying my eyes out. I've been doing it all morning. I'm actually, just very disheartened with what's going on in the world. So, yeah, and saddened. So when I take those deep, deep, deep breaths, taking a short one real quick, but I take a very slow, deep breath in. I hold for a moment. And then slowly let it out. And if you want to do it with me, I'm going to do it two more times, just to kind of really get me regrounded again. Now, in a different session, I would do that much longer. John Barnes, who I call him the godfather of myofascial release, which is a modality used by your hands to engage the restrictions within our system by waiting at the barrier for it to melt. And then that helps with pain and dysfunction, as well as pretty much every diagnosis out there, whether it's physical or mental or emotional. He has a great video where he does the whole process of a good breathing technique. So I'll go to that if I'm really having a hard time completely disengaging from my emotional state, and I need to move on and function in the world, because that's the biggest thing, functioning within our world. And when we can't do that, that adds additional strain and additional stress. So, which then is just going to contribute to more physical, emotional, and mental pain. So, from an emotional perspective, I do that. If that doesn't work, I go to John's technique. That usually works. If I can't get to John's technique, then I do what helps with mental pain, which is disconnect from whatever it is you're thinking about, whether it's past or present, and be here and be now. And when I say that, what it refers to, and it was the biggest thing that helped me through Morgan's death, was when Dave said to me, as I was completely overwhelmed and completely a wreck, he said to me, take a breath, breathe, feel the sofa under your legs, smell the air, hear my voice, feel the floor under your feet, be here, be now. And it instantly brought me to the current space. And within current space, We're not thinking of the past, and we're not thinking of the future. We are in the moment of all of our senses in the current environment. And when we are in that moment, we don't have the emotional pain or the mental pain that we put ourselves in thinking of the past and thinking of the future. And I'm sure he learned that from somewhere because he's super smart. But I would never forget that moment. And since then, that's the other technique that I use when I'm emotionally or mentally in a lot of pain. The other aspect of mental pain comes from a technique I learned in school for my master's in mental health counseling, which I'm going through now. It's called the ABC model. And the ABC model represents whatever issue we're going through, and it helps to dissect it in a way for us to process it differently. So, how it works is A is the action, B is the belief system, C is the consequences. We tend to look at an action and say, because of this action, this is the consequence. When I learned about this model that therapists can use or do use, I've never heard it before until I actually was doing my school studies. But in that moment, I needed to apply it in a way that made me understand it. And so it was around the time Morgan died, because I started this journey a few months after he died. I think it was like 6 months later. And I thought about his death. That's the action. The consequence was how I was feeling, how sad I was, how at the time I'm sure I was angry at the person that was involved with his death. I was feeling mostly sadness because he was gone. And I myself in that moment felt that mental and emotional pain was associated to his death. And this is what I'm feeling. When I saw this model and I thought about it and I labeled those two things, this is the action, Morgan died. The consequences is my sadness. What am I feeling? I'm depressed. I'm this, I'm that. But then I thought about the belief system. And I thought to myself, well, what is my belief system about Morgan's passing? And the first thing that came to mind was the belief that I should die first. And in that instant of thinking about that belief system, I realized that's not rational. That in modern times, we've grown accustomed to dying first. Yet, that is not necessarily realistic, especially prior to modern medicine. How many children died in childbirth or didn't even make it to childbirth? How many women died during childbirth along with their child? How many children have died because of cholera or polio or just accidents down, falling off of a second floor because there was no railings back then. There was no safety measures in practice. Falling out of a buggy in a wagon. Like, it's not realistic, that belief system. But that was the belief system that I had because of the time that I grew up in and the world that I currently live in, where modern medicine and all these safety precautions that we have help save lives. And it took me realizing that, to realize that it's not Morgan's death that's causing all this sadness. It is, to a small degree, because of all the belief systems in between. And that the consequences wasn't just based upon those actions. It was because of the belief systems that I have. And so it's the action that occurred, our belief systems that cause the consequences that we're experiencing and feeling. And when we can look at those belief systems, we can look at them as rational or irrational. And if they're rational and you still felt that way, then it's just another component to help you dissect it a little bit so that way you can process it, because feeling is healing. And our minds like to process everything. It's how we function in life, to find answers to things that either we don't like or things that hurt us. And we want to know that it will be okay. And so using the ABC model for any kind of mental distress, emotional distress, where we're stuck in something and we can't get past it, it helps. Saying that and using Morgan's death is, a big extreme. But it's the one that, and interesting enough, I'm going to say this because I had gotten a comment from someone who watches this and wanted to know what my greatest moment was. And my greatest moment has always been my son. From the time he was born till the time he died. Deep breath. So, even though one would be the saddest moment, the other one's the most happy, it's still greatest moments. And so, in a lot of ways, I will never, ever, ever be okay. But at the same time, I don't ever have to be a complete shell of who I am. I would just be the cracked shell that I am. Emotional day. Sorry, guys. Anyway, tears are real and pain is real, and it's not always physical. People see that all the time. Another aspect of mental pain is that a lot of people can relate to is financial stress. We've, for the most part, most of us, almost all of us, have at some point in our lives experienced financial distress, where we're worrying about paying our bills or putting groceries on the table or not getting kicked out of our home. And that mental stress really bogs us down, which then, like I said last week, creates emotional pain, because now we're walking around and we want to cry, or we're walking around and we want to punch something, or we're walking around and we're angry, which then turns into physical pain. Like when my son died, and how my emotional and mental pain turned into cancer. And I started to shut down on the inside. That aspect will slowly start to kill us. And when that stress-induced situations happens, we get into our fight, flight, or freeze response. Some people, when they get into those very stressful moments, they might sit with it for, I don't know, a day, a week, a month, a year, whatever it is. But then they just decide, what, I'm not going to do this anymore. And they change, they fight, they stand up and they're ready to go. Others will continue to run from it. It'll be okay. And they're just trying to survive in the day to day. And it'll be okay. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. And they're stuck, because any of those fight, flight, or freeze response, our body's tightening down so that way the energy can go towards our arms and legs, preparing us to either fight, run away, or freeze, like, the stopping of an animal attack where they play dead. That changes within us and then ripples those effects out, causing additional stresses, pain, etc., etc. So, even when it comes to the financial aspect, look at the ABC model after you have taken a breath. Be here, be now, and then look at that ABC model. So let's just use the financial worries as another example. If you're working even 3 jobs and you're still not making it, you're still not able to stay afloat, you still are worrying about money, and there's a valid reason to worry about money, and it's not just, because you don't have $3,000 saved in your savings, but yet your bills are paid. That's a different type of financial stress, and that's one that's more psychological and that you really need to look at the ABC model and your belief system of what that represents, and seeking out some treatment, whether it's with a counselor or a spiritual person, or even doing myofascial release, because that will stir up memories within us, whether it's from our current life or our past life. But putting that aside, let's just say you're working and you can't stay afloat no matter what you do. Take a moment, take a breath, be here, be now, and look at that ABC model. What is going on? Are you spending too much? Are you just, your living expense is just way too much? Are you trying to do it all alone and not accept money that may be contributing to the household, but you don't want that person's money? Look at that belief system. And when you do, it'll help with that mental pain that you're going through and that stress you're going through, as well as those emotions. Whew, yeah. So that is how I self-help for emotional and mental pain. In addition to those, sometimes you just need to talk to somebody, whether it's a person that you have no ties to, like a therapist or your hairstylist, because they are the best sometimes therapeutic relationships, because you're getting your hair done, getting all nice and pretty, and you get to dump your worries upon them, as they're sitting there asking you how your life is. Or is it just somebody that you love and trust that will just sit there and listen to you? Sometimes you need to voice it. We spend so much time trying to not give something power because we think that if we say these words into the universe that it's going to happen or it's going to be worse. But the thing is, the only way that happens, the only way it makes it worse is how much you believe that that's going to happen. How much that by speaking that word, you're going to be like changing the world. If you truly believe that, then probably eventually it's going to come back and it's actually going to do that. Because when I talk about spiritual stuff and I tell people, when they're doing white light to help them protect themselves, it's all about intention. And so if your intention is that as soon as you say this big word like cancer, then it's true. It's got to be true. That is the power you're giving it. When if you just have the voice of, yeah, I'm worried about this. Doesn't mean it's going to be true, but I am worried about this. And speaking it that way and saying it that way and voicing it out of you is one of the biggest things we can do for ourselves to deal with emotional and mental pain, which contributes to physical pain. So you guys see the cycle here, right? So we have been taught, by no fault of our parents or our grandparents and all the generations, because they just didn't understand and they just didn't know the damage that we have done. Because I've done it to Morgan as well, because I didn't know any different until he was older. We have been taught to suck it up and shove it down. If you're not bleeding, you're okay. And that's not okay. Because we hurt. If we fall and we clunk our knee and we may not be bleeding, but that hurt. And we want to cry, but then we're told, no, it's okay, don't cry. It's okay, suck it up. It's okay. And yes, we will be okay. But in that moment, living in the moment, we weren't okay. But yet we stuck it in and shoved it down. And so as we keep doing that, and as our cup gets full and full and full and full, at some point it's going to overflow. And when that overflows, it could be an emotional breakdown. It could be a mental breakdown. It could be a physical, ailment where one day you wake up in excruciating pain and you don't know why. And usually that's many factors, because we all have body dysfunction from our lifestyle, as I've come to learn. But it's all factors and it's all components that just add to our pain and how we process that pain. So, voice it. If you can't talk to somebody about it, because maybe you're not comfortable to do that with anybody. That's okay too. And that's where fire ceremonies come in that I tell people to do. A fire ceremony is just what it is. I light a candle because candles are easier to put out. And I sit in front of a candle. It doesn't matter the color. People ask me that all the time. It doesn't matter what smell it is. You can decide on that on your own. But I use a candle. I sit in front of that candle. I pick a person or a situation. And then I talk about that situation or that person. And I voice, honestly, everything that that person or situation did to me that was a negative feeling, an aspect of it I didn't like. And then as I talk about it, I might cry. I cry. I don't wipe my tears. I let them flow. If I get angry, I punch a pillow or I air punch, something that's not going to hurt me. If I want to scream, and I can't scream, unfortunately, for a couple reasons. One, it's just not in me to scream until it's like a panic situation, like when when Swiper decided to attack the other one last Tuesday. Yeah, I guess that's really the only situation I would say that I typically scream in, is to stop something from happening that's really terrible and nobody can hear me. Otherwise, the other reason I can't scream because I was raised to be self-sufficient and be okay. And so it's sometimes hard to find my voice, especially in these kind of moments. So what I do is I scream into a pillow. That way I'm not freaking out Swiper, who was abused prior to coming to me. So as soon as there's any kind of screaming or potentially what she thinks is fighting, she wants to respond. And as well as because I can't find my voice to scream. It's very difficult. So I'll scream into a pillow. I'll get it out. If I'm driving, I'll turn the music up really loud in my car so it seems like I'm just singing to the songs, and I'll scream out loud if I need to. My go-to is crying versus screaming. Get those energies out. Get those ripple effects out of you. Because it lessens your cup so you can take more in. Because it'd be nice to say that as I walk around, I don't let anything affect me. But that's not true. I am not somebody who has mastered that yet. And I don't think I ever will. So, get it out. Speak to that fire. Get those emotions out. If you get to a point where you're still talking about the person or situation and another person pops in your mind or another situation, that is for a different flame. But no, that's the next person or situation you need to talk about. If you get to a point where you just cannot continue because you have to stop, whether somebody came home and you don't feel comfortable doing this when someone's in the house, or you have to leave for the day, or, there's an emergency, blow out the candle for safety reasons, come back to that particular person and situation and finish. Once you get to a point where you feel like you've said everything you can potentially say, and you can't think of another thing to say about this person or situation that made you feel a certain way, you at that point say, I accept you for you, but I'm no longer going to feel this way. And then you blow out that candle. When you say those words, you're putting a closure to what you had just done. When you blow out that candle, all those things that you put, all that energy of speaking to the fire, destroyed it. To stop it from going into the universe even further. And then the little bit of smoke that you smell, because we all smell smoke. We're not purposely breathing it. You don't have to sit there and be like, take it in, take it in. No. Anytime there's smoke in the air, we can smell it just by breathing. But that little bit of smoke that you smell brings in that change of what you just said. that you accept this person or this situation for what it was, what it is. But you're not going to feel this way anymore. It works. I've done it. Sometimes I have to redo it for the same person because in the end, people are people. It doesn't matter the label that they are. People are people. And just because somebody is a label to you, whether it's mother, father, son, daughter, best friend, sister, brother, whatever, you don't have to like them. If they're a person in your life that causes problems for you, true problems, no matter what that label is, yes, you might still have to see them at some point in your life for the rest of your life. But you don't have to like the person they are. That person is who they are. Their personality. That's them. They may never change. But you don't have to like it. And because they're in your life, you don't have to take it in. You might still have to put up with them because of the label, but you don't have to take that energy in of their actions and what they're doing. So accepting that they are a person too, with their own quirks and their own personality and how they process life and what they do, even if it's really terrible, that is on them. And when we can disassociate ourselves from that, and that's how I've learned to do it, is the fire ceremony, it's easier the next time you interact with them because your cup's not full when it comes to that person or that situation. This also relates to people who are also passed away. You can do this on them as well to get out that energy. So that helps mentally, emotionally, and physically because, again, it's a big circle. So the last thing that we're going to wrap up with is our physical pain, right? So that is probably the biggest one people talk about. A lot of us don't talk about our emotional pain or our mental pain. It's easier to say, oh, my back hurts today, or my head hurts, or I always have migraines, or I have this, I have this diagnosis or that diagnosis or this. It's easier to talk about our physical pain with people. When it comes to physical pain, obviously we know from this week and last week's discussion, it's all tied together, whether the physical pain started it, the emotional pain started it, or the mental pain started it. It started somewhere. We all get affected on all three, and that's where we go down, right? But when it comes to physical pain for self-help techniques, it's funny because for a long time, whenever, you would hear like you need to stretch. We kind of all would like, oh, okay, it just seems like let's just get into the good stuff. But stretching truly helps us open up. So stretching is very important because when everything is so tight and jammed up, how do you get it to be untight? You stretch, right? You open it up. You release the tension. And even when we're yawning and stretching that way, we tend to not do it appropriately. We quickly stretch and like, okay, I'm good. Move on. Let's move on. When you're stretching because your body wants that. Your body needs that. Your body's looking for it. And our body has its own consciousness because of our own souls inside, the subconscious and the conscious layers that we have. And so, take the advice of a cat or a dog, an animal. When you see them stretch, what do? They stretch. They twist and they turn and they stay in a position and they might shift again. That's what we should be doing. When next time you go to stretch, hold that position and wait to see what your body wants to do. You'll find that it wants to continue to stretch in a different way or twist or something like that. Keep letting it happen. Take what seems like forever, but it'll probably work out to be like 30 seconds to stretch, to open up. That helps with some physical pain. The other thing that helps that I teach people when they come to see me for myofascial release or even spiritual stuff, for those that sit behind a desk all day, your shoulders are rounded and your psoas muscles are shortened and your legs are shortened. And these are all areas that need to be opened up and worked. So there's different stretches that that I teach to help open these areas. For somebody who is having issues conceiving or holding children, they need belly work. And as you work on that, you deal with the emotional pain, because that emotional loss that you're experiencing is not helping your abdomen and your uterus and all of those, you know, the complete function of reproduction. Now, how you do that is, again, belly work. You can, I tend to use foam rollers and tennis balls for my self-treatment. And there's different areas that you can work and different avenues you can try and to place them. So since this is just a high level self-help, and, you know, in the future I'll do, you know, some true techniques, showing the foam roller and the tennis balls and things like that. But from a high level perspective, the one thing that you can do for yourself is get tennis balls. And I say tennis balls because you can get myofascial balls if you want. They're more expensive. They're like, I don't know, between $6 and $10 a ball versus 30 cents. And if you have dogs, they don't know the difference between a tennis ball and a myo ball. To them, it's a ball. And so if they get the tennis ball for 30 cents, it's no big deal. You just go get another ball from the closet for yourself. You get a myo ball, now you're going to be upset that your dog destroyed your treatment ball. So get tennis balls. Get a lot of them if you have a dog. Get a bundle. So that way, if they see you have a ball, you can get a second ball and toss them the other ball. When using tennis balls for self-treatment, if you've never used them before for self-treatment perspective, use them on something soft first, such as the sofa, your bed at night. And wherever you're hurting, find a spot near it if you can't treat it directly. So let's say sciatic. That's a good example. So people who have sciatic pain, it's actually a treatment you need to work on in the glute, dead center of your butt. When you go to use it, though, and you put a tennis ball dead center on your butt to get your piriformis, which is what's usually causing sciatic pain, it could hurt terribly, like excruciating, even on a bed where you have some cushion there. If you have to suck it up to get through when you're self-treating, you're not treating in the right place. It's not about no pain, no gain. That's a stupid thing to say, because all you're doing is tightening up somewhere else. If you're sucking up pain and getting through it, you're either grinding your teeth, which is then tightening your TMJ, and then now you have TMJ issues, which also causes migraines, as well as neck pain and shoulder pain and all this other stuff. Or you might be like cinching your fist, which again is tightening up all your arm into your wrist, into your arm. So it's not about sucking it up. If you go to work a spot and it hurts, move it. Move the ball somewhere else, nearby. Try a different spot. You have 360 spots around the spot that hurts. And if you get to a spot where it hurts, but it's either good pain, and we all know what that is, where something hurts so bad, but yet it's like, oh, there's such relaxation there, and you're not tightening up to get through it, stay there. Wait 3 to 5 minutes. Longer if you're still feeling a good amount of pain that feels good in that spot, for as long as you need to. Then try that pain spot again. If it's still too much, pick a different spot. Treat there 3 to 5 minutes. Once you're done, go back to that pain spot. Work yourself around the dial until you can actually treat the spot that hurts extremely bad. Once you've gotten to a point on, let's say, a bed or the sofa, and you're really just not feeling anymore, but it's still bothering you in the day or at night, try the floor. If you go to the floor and it's extremely painful, put a pillow between you and the ball, because you're still getting some pushback, but not as lax as the sofa or the bed. once you continue down that path, you can get to the point where you can treat yourself on the floor and really got to get in there deep. And if you're getting in there that deep on such a hard surface, you're getting to the real roots of the problem, which is then going to fix some of the dysfunction in your hip and your leg, opening things up so you have less pain. And you'll find once you get to that point, you just need to do maintenance. Maybe pain surfaces somewhere else. So that's the next spot you need to work on. When working the shoulders, you can have some in the car. I have a ball in the car, and I'll put it in my shoulders, in my low back, under my hamstrings. I tell my clients that work at a desk all day, have a tennis ball at work, because you could take a break and go sit on the floor with the tennis ball. You could sit on it, have it under your hamstring while you're working in the day, or 2 under the hamstrings while you're working through the day. And that will help with the tension in your legs. So tennis balls are lifesavers. Tennis balls don't necessarily work in our stomach because obviously, our cavity caves in, and that's where foam rollers come into play. Foam rollers, it's not about rolling it, as you'll see with videos out there, especially when it became very popular, I think like 2 years ago. When you roll it, think of it this way. If you roll the same area over and over and over and over again, yeah, eventually it's going to loosen up, right? Eventually. In the meantime, you're kind of beating yourself up as well. You might be just kind of making yourself bruised. You could just be pulling funny. You're just sitting there kind of just rolling. Eventually, it's going to work. It could take, 15, 20 minutes versus just lay on it. Just sit still. 3 to 5 minutes, that pressure melts by the hold. So when using foam rollers without specific techniques that you're told on how to use it, and like I said, we'll do a more detailed one. Not sure if we're going to do it next weekend or not. So I'm not going to announce what I'm doing next weekend because there's a couple other things I want to get introduced in here, and I'm not sure which one's going to take precedent at this point. But you can always reach out to me, tell me what you're having from a physical pain perspective, and I can tell you what to do, either with a tennis ball or a foam roller. But when using a foam roller, not only do you want to wait and sit for 3 to 5 minutes in wherever you're at, but again, don't suck it up. If it's too painful, don't do it. Just pick somewhere else to work. It might seem irrelevant to work your calves when your neck hurts, but it's all connected. It's one big giant system in our body that looks almost like a spider web. It's where all our fluid sits. It's where all our energy moves through. It surrounds every aspect of our body. It's called the fascia system, or interstitial system. That interstitial organ, I think, is what a few years back somebody coined it to be, and saying it's the new organ. It's not a new organ. It's been around for, our entire lives, and a lot of people ahead of our time, John Barnes, Carol Davis, there's a lot of people out there who have been working on this. Dr. Gumberto have been working on this system for generations, and yet it got a new name, which is fine because it helps the doctors understand. But anytime you get labeled with an interstitial organ issue, it is your fascia system, and doing myofascial release therapy will help. Absolutely help. Every type of pain and dysfunction can be assisted for non-invasive, non-surgical, non-medical reasons through myofascial release. So, and then self-help at home with the tennis balls and the foam rollers. So, if you use a foam roller, if it's too much, use it on your bed first. Use it somewhere that works for you from a soft perspective. If you can't use it on your bed because of the position that you're using it, and you can't use it on the sofa because of the position you're trying to get to, get some pillows. Get some cushion between you and that hard surface. And if that's still too much, to get a second foam roller and cut it in half. because it's less diameter and it's less painful. And then you could work yourself up to a full diameter foam roller. For those of you who don't have a foam roller and are looking for the right one, Amazon sells them, I think, for 20 bucks. Don't get the super cheap ones because they're going to be short or maybe not as wide as a diameter. But the best one that you can get is a 3 foot long and a 6-inch diameter. And the reason I say that is because with that one, you can do so many more techniques in a shorter time. Because in the end, we value everything as time. How much time does it take to do this? How much time does it take to that? Especially when it comes to self-help treatment. If something's going to take several hours to do, we're not going to make that time. But if you can treat both of your quads within 3 to 5 minutes by having one that's 3 feet long, you're going to do it. If you have one that's 3 feet long that you can put your head and your tailbone on and lie on it down your spine and treat your head, your shoulders, your low back, your psoas, your chest, treat your core within 3 to 5 minutes, you're going to do that. But you're not going to take all that time to treat your head, to treat your shoulders, to treat your chest, to treat your back, to treat this. You're not going to take individual 3 to 5 minutes. I'm realistic when it comes to that. Which is why I even tell a lot of my clients, do this while you're doing that. A lot of us have a rotation and a turn in our rib cage. I know I do. I work on it all the time. So I tell my clients, when you're doing the dishes or when you're cooking, stand this way. Work that rotation into your cooking for that 3 to 5 minutes. And you're pretty much working through into a stretch. It's not about weights. It's just moving with our body and working against those restrictions. So later today, because we're almost done, later today when, you're finished and done watching this or whatever, twist. Stand in one position and twist one direction to the other. Which one's harder to twist into? Which one you can twist almost like completely around? For me, my left side is more restricted. And I can show you. So if I turn to my right, just sitting, you see how far I can go. I can keep going. Here's my limitation. That's where I stop. Now watch when I go to the right. And I'm not dramatizing it. As you can see, I can't get further than this. That's a huge difference. I can't get even if I try and force it, I cannot get my shoulder parallel to you. Versus this one, it's like, boop, I'm right here. So I have a lot of tightness through my left side, causing me to pull to the right. So figure out where those are and work it, which means I know I need to work it. I got away from my day-to-day stuff when Morgan died, and that didn't help my health issues either. So I'm trying to get back to it. But work it. Find those restrictions. And if you're not sure what they are, seek out a myofascial release therapist, and even for just one appointment, and ask them to tell you where your restrictions are so you know. So you can start to slowly change what those things are. All right. Now, we didn't give much time for questions, and I apologize for that since we started out. I started out a very emotional day here. But let me see what my comments are real quick. Good morning, good morning, good morning, guys. So good to see you. Haley, I love you too. Virginia, love you too. Virginia's my sis. She lives in Arkansas. I don't get to see her, so which is awesome to see that you're on here. So if you have questions, let me know. But so we started with the world and what's going on and the sadness and the hate and everything else and how overwhelming it is. Sorry, comment just pulled up. Thank you, Sharon. She said she had me cry. She was crying with me. So I'm sending hugs. And that it was a great session with a lot to take away. I guess I can throw them onto the screen, which I did last time around. So what I want to end with is there's a lot out there going on with peaceful protesting as well as looting and rioting, which seems like that has calmed down quite a bit. And it's now come to more peaceful protesting. How long that lasts, it's hard to say. It definitely adds a certain level when National Guard comes in, which kind of stops some of that activity. But we have the entire world that is protesting and trying to stop what so many generations have been trying to stop. The hate, the racism, the looking at somebody just because they don't look the same as you. And it stirs up a lot within us. It really does. And when we take a step back and we look at what is stirring up within us and why, do we truly hate this person just because they're different? Or do we hate ourselves? Or do we hate an aspect of ourselves? And now we're just projecting it onto somebody else. Or maybe somebody of a particular gender or race or whatever hurt us. And now we're going to project that on every person of that particular characteristic. That is all within us. And if we could take a sidestep and look within us, maybe the world can change. But it all starts with us. Every one of us needs to take a step, a pause, and realize why we're feeling the way that we are about everything. And even if it's justified in your mind as to why you're feeling that way or why you're acting this way, are you remorseful? Are you sorry you did what you did? And I hope that these police officers and the rioters and the looters and the protesters that maybe have done something that was not a good thing in any way, has hurt somebody, that they apologize, even if they can't do it to whoever it was that they wronged. Apologize to themselves, to the fire, get those feelings out, to be better. Because just like I tell those that watch my other channel regarding losing Morgan, for those that are still on drugs, those that are still using, as long as you are still alive and you wake up, it's another day to try and be a better person. To stop. And as long as we're still alive, we all can still try. I can't physically go protest. One, physically, I just can't. Emotionally, I can't. I can't be around all that hate and all that, because even though the protesters are protesting for the right reasons, there's a lot of hate there too. Hate towards the police, hate towards the oppression, hate. Everybody's hating, and it's very difficult. Yet I can be over here at home and send love and feel the sadness and send positive energy out there that people heal. And they feel okay. Because it's not okay to treat people so terribly. And it's not just black people. It's not the African American people. It's our Asian friends. It's our Mexican friends. It's our LGBTQ community. And then it's vice versa. In certain ways. There's certain communities, if we walk into, even as a white person, we're looked upon as hate. Even if we're not. Even if we're just there to help and be a good person. There's a lot of hate in this world. From every person. And I just hope people just change that hate to love and acceptance. Love is hard because it's hard to love somebody you don't know. But acceptance is a better word. So send positive energy out there for everybody. I'm sending all my love to everybody in the world right now. Even the ones that are terrible people that really need to look upon themselves as something more than what they are. And I hope that that love and peace that people feel will help. So, went over, that's right at the time. I thought we went over a little bit. All right, until next week, everybody, sending love and hope that we don't forget. I hope that we learn from this. I hope that we all become better people because of this. I really do.